The school's bright hallway lights flickered above, but Mark was used to feeling invisible. Worn denim jacket, scuffed boots, tired eyes. To the other parents, he was just a struggling single dad, someone who didn't belong in their world of perfect smiles and PTA politics. They watched him, whispered, laughed, but in just 10 minutes, the man they mocked would become the only reason they all walked out alive. For Mark, every morning was a perfectly timed dance of love and logistics. He was always up before the sun to pack a lunch for his 8-year-old daughter, Lily. He made sure her favorite apple was sliced just right, and that a little heart-shaped note was tucked beside her sandwich. He'd braid her long brown hair with a gentle touch that you wouldn't expect from his calloused hands, his fingers surprisingly nimble after years of practice. Lily was his entire world, a universe of missing socks, bedtime stories, and bright, gap-toothed smiles. She was the reason he worked 2 jobs, the reason he put up with the bone-deep exhaustion, and the reason he walked into the lion's den of Northwood Elementary every single day. Walking Lily to her classroom was the hardest part. It felt like running a gauntlet of judgment. The other mothers, dressed in their spotless yoga outfits, would fall silent as he approached. Their smiles would tighten, their chats pausing just long enough for him to pass before starting up again in hushed tones. He could feel their assumptions hanging in the air, thick and suffocating. As the only single dad who showed up for everything, he was an outsider in a club he never wanted to join. The loneliness was a quiet, constant ache. He did try, at first. At the start of the school year, he tried to join a conversation about a bake sale. Amanda had looked him up and down, a faint, patronizing smile on her lips. "Oh, that's sweet," she'd said, her voice dripping with fake sincerity. "But it's really more of a mom thing. We'll handle it." The other women nodded, turning their backs to him, and the circle closed once more. He saw how it was affecting Lily. He'd catch her watching him from the playground, her little brow furrowed with a worry no 8-year-old should have to carry. She heard the whispers, too. She saw the other kids getting picked up by 2 parents, and then she'd look at him, her quiet, tired dad, and he could see the questions in her eyes. He fought back the only way he knew how, with unwavering love. He showed up for everything. Parent-teacher conferences, holiday shows, science fairs. He was always there, usually standing alone in the back. He knew that just being there was all that mattered to her. A silent promise that she was loved fiercely and completely. The new principal, Ms. Evans, was still getting the lay of the land at Northwood Elementary. She was young, sharp, and observant. From her office window, she saw more than just students and teachers. She saw the subtle politics of the parents, and she'd noticed Mark. She saw him every morning, holding his daughter's hand, his gaze soft with love. She also saw how the other parents treated him, the cold shoulders and dismissive looks. Her predecessor had ignored parent drama, but Ms. Evans believed a healthy school community had to include everyone. She just hadn't found the right moment yet to challenge the status quo. The annual school fair was the biggest event of the year, a festival of games and food spread across the school's athletic fields. Amanda and her committee had spent weeks planning it. Mark had offered to help, genuinely wanting to be a part of things. He put his name on the volunteer sheet, hoping to grill burgers or run a game, anything that would put him in the middle of it all. Instead, Amanda assigned him to site logistics. It sounded official, but it just meant he had to help a rental company set up the main tent and then stay on standby. It was a role designed to keep him useful, but invisible. He took the job without a word of complaint, his quiet nature often mistaken for weakness. On the day of the fair, the sky was a perfect, cloudless blue. The field was buzzing with activity. Kids were shrieking with joy in the bouncy castle, and the smell of cotton candy mixed with grilled hot dogs. Mark had done his job, helping the crew anchor the huge white tent that housed the bake sale and craft tables. But he had a vague, uneasy feeling. He'd worked in event rigging and construction for 5 years before Lily was born. He knew temporary structures like this were tricky. The ground was soft from a week of rain, and he worried the standard stakes the rental company used weren't enough if the weather suddenly turned. He noticed a few of the stakes weren't driven in as deep as they should be, a common shortcut. He made a mental note to keep an eye on it. Lily ran up to him, her face painted like a tiger. "Daddy, can we go on the Ferris wheel?" "Of course, sweetie. Just let me finish checking this," he said, giving a hard tug on a rope. It felt a little loose. That's when Amanda and her friends strolled by, their laughter loud and sharp. "Still playing with ropes, Mark?" Amanda called out. "Don't worry. We'll let you know if any of our decorations come loose." Her friends giggled. Mark felt that familiar sting of humiliation, but just gave a small, tight smile and focused on the rope. He didn't see Ms. Evans standing near the tent entrance. She saw the whole thing, and her expression hardened. She saw Mark's quiet dignity, and it only deepened the respect she was starting to feel for him. He finished his check, the unease still lingering, and took Lily's hand. As they walked toward the rides, he glanced at the sky. On the horizon, a line of dark, bruised-looking clouds was gathering. The perfect blue sky was gone. A sudden, chilly wind rustled the leaves and made the banners on the tent flap nervously. The weather was changing, much faster than anyone expected. The weather turned in an instant. One moment, the sun was warm. The next, a deep gray shadow fell over the fair. The wind picked up, no longer a breeze, but a forceful gale that sent paper plates scattering like frightened birds. You could smell the rain in the air. The cheerful music from the speakers was now fighting against the ominous sound of the wind whipping through the trees. Parents started looking at the sky, their laughter dying. A few began gathering their children, talking about getting home before the storm hit. But most people, fooled by the beautiful morning, stayed put. They herded their families under the big event tent, thinking it was safe. The tent was getting crowded, fast. Mark's unease turned into full-blown alarm. He recognized the signs of a squall line, a fast, violent storm. His eyes were glued to the main tent. It was straining against its ropes. The canvas was rippling violently, and the metal poles were groaning under the pressure. He knew exactly what was happening. The wind was getting under the roof, creating lift, while the wet ground was letting the anchors slip. It was a recipe for disaster. "Lily," he said, his voice low and urgent, "I need you to go stand by Ms. Evans, over by the school doors. Go right now." He pointed toward the solid brick building. Lily, sensing the seriousness in his voice, didn't argue. She squeezed his hand and ran. Ms. Evans, who had also been watching the sky, saw Lily running toward her. She met the little girl halfway, her professional calm hiding a growing dread. The safety of every person here was her responsibility, and she was facing a crisis no training manual could prepare her for. People were starting to panic as the first fat drops of rain began to fall. Then, the sky opened up. A torrential downpour turned the field into a swamp in seconds. The crowd huddled deeper into the tent, a structure never meant to be a storm shelter. This was Mark's worst fear realized. The weight of the rain on the roof added immense stress to the already failing frame. He saw Amanda near the center, trying to look calm, but visibly cracking as she clutched her son's hand. Other parents were frozen, their faces pale with fear, staring at the heaving canvas above them. A vicious gust of wind ripped through the fair. There was a loud, sickening crack as a main support pole on the far side bent sharply. The corner of the tent sagged, and a collective scream rose from the crowd. The whole thing was coming down. In that moment of pure panic, Mark moved with a speed and purpose that stunned everyone. While others were frozen in fear, his mind snapped into a familiar focus, the same focus he'd relied on during years of high-risk construction jobs. He wasn't thinking. He was acting. "Get back! Move to the center!" he roared, his voice cutting through the storm and the rising panic. It was a voice of command, one nobody at Northwood Elementary had ever heard from him. People, desperate for direction, did as he said. He sprinted toward the failing side of the tent. The main support pole had buckled, and the anchors had been pulled almost completely out of the wet ground. The entire structure was about to collapse inward on the dozens of families inside. Ignoring the lashing rain, he grabbed a discarded folding table. With a grunt, he jammed it under the failing joint, creating a makeshift brace. It would only buy them a few seconds. "I need rope," he yelled to two fathers who were standing nearby, paralyzed with fear. "From the game booths. Now!" He pointed toward the ring toss and beanbag toss stalls. They stared blankly for a second, then, shocked into action by his urgency, they ran. Ms. Evans, watching from the school entrance, was mesmerized. She saw not a tired, lonely man, but a leader. She grabbed her megaphone. "Listen to him," she broadcasted, her voice amplified and steady. "Everyone, stay calm and listen to that man." The fathers returned with the ropes. Mark's hands worked with practiced speed, securing the failing section. He shouted instructions, not asking, but ordering. "Loop it around that main pole. Pull, pull against the wind." He saw Amanda, her face ashen, trying to shield her young son. The section of tent right above them started to rip. Mark didn't hesitate. He lunged, grabbing them both and shoving them toward the center of the tent, just as a heavy metal crossbar crashed down exactly where they had been standing. Amanda stared at the spot, her eyes wide with terror and a dawning, profound realization. He had just saved her life. Mark was already moving on, organizing a human chain, directing parents to guide children and the elderly out of the collapsing tent and toward the school. He put himself in the most dangerous position, holding a flap open, his body shielding the exit from the wind and rain as people streamed past. He was the last one out, only leaving when he was sure every single person was clear. As he finally stumbled into the driving rain, soaked and shivering, the entire tent structure gave way behind him. With a deafening shriek of tearing canvas and twisting metal, it collapsed into a heap of wreckage. He stood there for a moment, breathing heavily, as the storm raged over the ruins. The field was empty. Everyone was safe. The silence inside the school gym was somehow louder than the storm had been. The only sounds were the soft cries of frightened children and the drumming of rain against the high windows. Parents and students were huddled in groups, wrapped in emergency blankets. They were safe, dry, and they were all looking at one person. Mark stood near the entrance, water pooling around his boots. The adrenaline was finally wearing off, leaving him exhausted. He scanned the gym until he saw Lily. She ran to him, wrapping her arms around his waist. He held her tight, finally letting himself feel the fear he'd pushed down. She was safe. That's all that mattered. Slowly, the other parents started to approach. The father Mark had yelled at to get the ropes walked up, his hand extended. I don't know what to say," the man stammered. "Thank you. You saved my family." He shook Mark's hand with pure gratitude. One by one, others followed. They offered quiet words of thanks, their faces a mixture of shame and awe. They had judged this man for months, and in 10 minutes, he had shattered every single one of their assumptions. Then, Amanda approached. Her expensive clothes were splattered with mud. She stopped in front of Mark, and for a long moment, she couldn't speak. All the arrogance was gone, replaced by a raw, humbling vulnerability. She started, her voice breaking. "That pole, it would have—" "Thank you, Mark. I was so wrong about everything. I am so sorry." The apology was quiet but sincere, delivered in front of the entire community she had once led in mocking him. Ms. Evans came forward and placed a hand on Mark's shoulder. She looked around the gym. "Today, we were very lucky," she said, her voice clear and firm. "We were lucky that one of our own had the courage and the skill to lead when everyone else was afraid. We owe our safety to Mark." She looked right at him, her eyes filled with deep respect. "Thank you, Mark. You're a hero." Mark, not used to being the center of attention, could only nod. He didn't feel like a hero. He was just a father who knew his way around a rope and couldn't stand by while people were in danger. The following Monday morning felt different. As Mark walked Lily to her classroom, the usual whispers and cold shoulders were gone. Instead, He was met with nods of respect and warm smiles. People actually made eye contact. They said, "Good morning, Mark," for the first time. He didn't feel like an outsider. Amanda was waiting for him near the classroom door with a tentative smile. "I've been thinking," she said, her tone humble. "The PTA could really use someone with your practical skills. We'd be honored if you'd consider joining." For real this time. Mark looked at her, then at Lily, who was beaming with pride. He gave a small, genuine smile. "I'll think about it," he said. As he watched Lily go into her classroom, he didn't feel that usual pang of loneliness. The weight of judgment was gone, replaced by a sense of belonging. He was the same man, in the same faded jacket. But now, when people looked at him, they didn't just see a single dad. They saw the man who stood tall in the storm. They saw who he really was. And as he walked out of the school, he felt a sense of peace. His world was still his daughter, but maybe, just maybe, that world had gotten a little bigger. The quietest people are often the strongest, their true character hidden from view. This story is a powerful reminder that you can't judge someone by how they look or what they have. If this story of quiet heroism touched your heart, we hope you'll like this video and subscribe for more inspiring content. We'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Have you ever completely misjudged someone, only to be amazed by who they truly were? Share your story with us. It wasn't a grand speech or a loud declaration that changed everything. It was a simple act of competence and courage when it mattered most. Mark never wanted applause. He just wanted to protect his daughter and the people around him. In doing so, he taught an entire community that real heroism isn't about the clothes you wear or the money you have. It's about what you do in a crisis. It's about the strength of your character, a quality that can't be seen, only revealed.